humanitarian law. The Dominican Republic expresses its deep concern over the humanitarian situation afflicting the civilian population in the region. We urgently call on all parties to ensure safe, swift, and unobstructed access to humanitarian assistance for all those in need, in accordance with the obligations established under the Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols. Our country stands ready to continue supporting all diplomatic efforts made by the international community to facilitate dialogue, ease tensions, and to promote an international order based on respect for the rule of law, where human dignity, justice, and inclusive development are the guiding principles. In this context, the Dominican Republic wishes to reiterate its steadfast support for the existence of a Palestinian state. We trust that the outcomes of this conference, particularly on the basis of the contributions presented by the various working groups, will make an important contribution to this shared objective in favor of peace. We hope that this will be achieved through the full implementation of a two-state solution and through the admission of the State of Palestine as a full member of this organization. Thank you very much. I thank the representative of the Dominican Republic for that statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Cambodia.
Mr. President, Excellency, distinguished delegates, at the outset, allow me to express my appreciation to the government of France and Saudi Arabia for convening this vital high-level conference. It is my honor to speak today on behalf of a nation that not long ago emerged from the shadow of conflict, devastation, and grief. Cambodia, now all too well the human cause of war and the destructive power of hatred. This experience compels us to approach today's deliberations with a profound commitment to peace. As a small and peace-loving state, Cambodia cannot overstate the values of peace. Yet today, our peace has been gravely disrupted. The situation along our border remains fragile, following a series of hostile acts by our neighbors. Mr. President, Cambodia reaffirmed its unwavering support for two-state solution as the only viable path to a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace between Israel and Palestine. The vision rooted in relevant United Nations resolution and international law envision two sovereign states coexistent side by side in harmony within secure and recognized border. In this regard, Cambodia further endorsed Palestinian aspiration for full membership of the United Nations. Cambodia called for utmost genuine effort to resolve the protracted Israeli-Palestinian conflict through diplomacy, peaceful resolution, starting with a permanent ceasefire agreement, which is urgently needed to protect life and provide relief to the suffering. We express deep concern about the persistent violence and humanitarian suffering in the region, which must not be allowed to continue unchecked. Civilian safety must be non-negotiable. We strongly condemn all acts of terrorism and violence targeting civilians. Such action only deep division and perpetuate cycle of vengeance. The horror of war cannot be resolved through further conflict. Cambodia urged all parties to engage in meaningful dialogue guided by international law and humanitarian principles. Cambodia called upon the international community to renew its commitment and solidarity to multilateralism, strengthen the roles of United Nations, and advocate for constructive engagement between all stakeholders. to support negotiations that lead to a just, lasting, and peaceful resolution. In conclusion, Cambodia wishes to underscore the importance of upholding the principle of mutual respect and tolerance as fundamental pillar of peaceful coexistence, stability, and progress throughout the region. Let us move beyond finger pointing and unite in our shared humanity. Let peace not be a distant dream, but a shared and achievable reality. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Cambodia for that statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the Holy See.
Mr. Co-Chairs, at the outset, my delegation wishes to express its appreciation to France and Saudi Arabia for convening this conference and to thank the co-chairs of the working groups for their dedicated efforts. In an era where strength is frequently regarded as a prerequisite for peace, this gathering should serve as a poignant reminder that only through patient and inclusive dialogue a just and lasting conflict resolution can be achieved. Mr. Co-Chairs, in the light of the profound anguish and terrible human suffering that has befallen the region, the Holy See reiterates its unequivocal condemnation of the heinous terrorist attack of 7 October by Hamas against the people of Israel. Terrorism can never be justified. At the same time, the Holy See emphasizes that the right to self-defense should be exercised within the traditional limit of necessity and proportionality. The Holy See remains gravely concerned by the worsening humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. The devastating impact on civilians, especially the number of children killed, has been compounded by the destructions of homes, hospitals, and places of worship, with the recent attack on the Holy Family Church further wounding an already distressed community. This is deeply concerning given that Christians in the region have long played a vital role as a moderating and stabilizing presence, promoting dialogue and peace. The mass displacement of families, the breakdown of essential services, growing famine, and widespread deprivation shock the human conscience and require an immediate coordinated response from the international community. Therefore, the Holy See urgently calls for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all Israeli hostages, the restitutions of the bodies of the deceased, the protection of all Palestinian civilians in accordance with international humanitarian law, and unhindered access to humanitarian assistance. Mr. Co-Chairs, the Holy See remains convinced that the two-state solution based on a secure and internationally recognized borders is the only viable and equitable path towards a just and lasting peace. To support this vision, the Holy See has already taken meaningful steps. It formally recognized the State of Israel through the 1993 Fundamental Agreement and the State of Palestine through the 2015 Comprehensive Agreement. It continues to uphold the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, including the right to self-determination. The Holy See supports their legitimate aspiration to live in freedom, security, and dignity within an independent and sovereign state. Mr. Co-Chairs, Jerusalem is a city of universal religion and cultural significance. It is sacred to Christians, Jews, and Muslims alike. Therefore, it requires a status that transcends political divisions and ensures the preservation of its unique identity. To this end, the Holy See reiterates its long-standing call for an international guaranteed special status capable of ensuring the dignity and rights of all its inhabitants and the faithful of the three monotheistic religions, the equality before the law of their institutions and communities, safeguarding the city's sacred character and its exceptional religious and cultural heritage. Furthermore, it must ensure the protection of the holy places, guarantee the unhindered right to access them and to worship there. It must also preserve the status quo where applicable. In Jerusalem, no one should be subjected to harassment. Therefore, it is regrettable that Christians feel increasingly threatened in the old city of Jerusalem. Mr. Co-Chairs, my delegation sincerely hopes that this conference will help build trust and strengthen the commitment of all parties to pursuing peace. Thank you very much.
Je remercie Monsieur.
I thank the representative of the Holy See for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Namibia.
Merci beaucoup et shukran for giving Namibia the floor to address this assembly. Namibia reaffirms its long-standing and principled position on the question of Palestine. The rights of the Palestinian people are not a matter of negotiation or compromise. They are rights guaranteed under international law, affirmed by countless United Nations resolutions and recognized by the international community. Yet, we continue to witness with grave concern the unfolding deadly and destructive violence and loss of human life that undermine efforts towards a peaceful resolution of the long-standing conflict. Israel's indiscriminate attacks against civilians in Gaza are the latest episode in the 77 years of the Nakba. The escalating violence is amongst the deadliest on record for women, children, the elderly, and people with disabilities. Namibia remains particularly worried about the worsening humanitarian situation. Throughout Gaza, freedom of movement and access to humanitarian relief remain severely limited despite the clear provisions of Security Council and General Assembly resolutions. Let us be reminded that the weaponization of starvation as a method of warfare is prohibited under international law and must be halted. We firmly believe that the path to peace must begin with an immediate and unconditional ceasefire by all parties and the full implementation of all UN resolutions. This is an imperative that will pave the way for just, lasting, and comprehensive peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, living side by side, coexisting in an atmosphere of peace and security. No amount of humanitarian and economic support can substitute a negotiated two-state solution, which is the only solution to meet the legitimate security needs of both Israelis and Palestinians. This also implies the urgency of ensuring accountability by all parties. Moreover, there is an urgency to solving the ongoing fiscal crisis faced by the Palestinian Authority due to a combination of factors, including a foreign aid shortfall and the impact of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. The World Bank has reported that the conflict has plunged the Palestinian economy into its deepest contraction in over a generation, with Gaza experiencing near total paralysis and the West Bank facing a deep recession. The continuation of this crisis is impacting an already fragile Palestinian economy and threatens to destabilize an already volatile situation. The situation is exacerbated by the Israeli government's withholding of funds and restrictions on humanitarian aid delivery, and we urge the international community to provide coordinated support to address this crisis. My delegation resolutely supports the admission of the State of Palestine as a full member state of the United Nations with all rights and privileges. The recent Security Council veto that blocked Palestine's full UN membership is a significant setback for international efforts to resolve the protracted Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Palestine has held observer status at the UN since 2012 and has diligently worked towards full membership, which is a vital step toward recognizing Palestinian statehood. Currently, Palestine is acknowledged as a sovereign nation by 149 of the 193 member states, demonstrating overwhelming international support for its rightful recognition. We call on the UN Security Council to reconsider its stance and to take a just decision that reflects the rights and aspirations of Palestinians. In conclusion, Namibia's commitment and solidarity with the Palestinian people is unwavering. We believe in their inalienable right to self-determination and full recognition as a rightful member of the United Nations and its specialized agencies, ensuring they secure their long overdue place within the global community of nations. Namibia remains dedicated to supporting all diplomatic efforts aimed at achieving these vital goals, advocating for justice, peace, and equality.
I thank the representative of Namibia for that statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Thailand.
Co-chairs, Thailand would like to express our deep appreciation for your collective efforts and determination in convening this conference to reaffirm our shared political will and commitment to ensuring peace and stability in the Middle East. This long-awaited conference aims to advance international support for a just, lasting, and comprehensive resolution of the Israel-Palestine conflict through the peaceful implementation of the two-state solution. Co-chairs, regrettably, one delegation raised an unrelated issue. While I had not intended to bring this bilateral matter into this very important forum, I must briefly clarify the facts to prevent misunderstanding. On July 28, through the good offices of the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Sheikh Fazil, a ceasefire was agreed. Yet, shortly after it took effect on July 29th, our neighbor resumed cross-border fire and incursions into Thailand territory in grave violation of the agreement. Thailand urges our neighbor to adhere strictly to the ceasefire agreement and reaffirms its commitment to working through existing bilateral channels and to refrain from disseminating false or misleading information and to engage in good faith. Co-chairs, the dire situation in Gaza with ongoing hostilities, humanitarian suffering, and widespread displacements, as well as rising tensions across the broader Middle East region, urgently call for renewed dialogue and efforts to safeguard peace and stability. Allow me to highlight the following points. First, Thailand reaffirms our support for the two-state solution as the only viable path to lasting peace, in accordance with international law and relevant UN resolutions, with the states of Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. An inclusive approach is essential. Thailand supports all efforts by the UN, regional and international partners, including the League of Arab States, the OIC, and peace-loving nations, to foster meaningful dialogue and create conditions for peace. Trust must be rebuilt through confidence-building measures, constructive engagement, and inclusive diplomacy that addresses the concerns and aspirations of all parties. Second, we'll continue to call for a ceasefire that is sustainable, and an immediate and unconditional release of all remaining hostages. With Thai nationals among those affected, we have witnessed firsthand the human toll that extends beyond the region. Peace in the Middle East is therefore a shared responsibility for us all. Third, the protection of civilians remains our priority. We support the immediate, safe, unimpeded delivery of humanitarian assistance in accordance with international humanitarian law. Co-chairs, today let us reaffirm our collective resolve to bring this conflict to a permanent end through constructive dialogue and action-oriented solutions. Let history not remember us for our inaction, but for our courage to take decisive steps in the pursuit of peace over conflict.
Je remercie Monsieur le
I thank the representative of Thailand for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Ecuador.
Agradezco a Arabia.
I thank Saudi Arabia and France for convening this high-level conference. On the 29th of November 1947, Ecuador voted in favour of United Nations General Assembly Resolution 181. Co-chairs, for Ecuador, multilateralism must urgently contribute to decisively addressing the needs of peoples. Hence, Ecuador maintains that the concept of peace and security must be applied in a timely, effective, and consistent fashion to allow us to address emerging threats to democracy and human rights, including terrorism and transnational organized crime. These are global scourges that know no borders and that no country can confront alone. This realistic approach, grounded in effective multilateralism, must also be applied to the issue before us today. No military action, abductions, conquests, uprisings, famines, or abhorrent acts of terrorism have managed to resolve, nor will they resolve, this issue. Almost 8 decades of pursuing such a path unsuccessfully should be enough. It's time to stop the blame game and instead to focus on achieving a lasting agreement once and for all. The only viable path is to move towards a negotiated, peaceful, definitive and just solution for the parties. My country hopes that in the not too distant future, peace and security may return to the region. Thank you very much.
Je remercie.
I thank the representative of Ecuador for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Kyrgyzstan.
Distinguished co-chairs, excellencies, let me also thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France for convening this important conference We also commend the contributions and ongoing engagement of all high-level representatives presented over the past 3 days. Kyrgyzstan stands in full solidarity with the people of Palestine, particularly in light of the devastating humanitarian situation in Gaza. We're gravely concerned by the suffering endured by innocent civilians, especially women, children, and elderly. The ceasefire agreement from January 2025 brought a brief yet significant pause in hostages, enabled the exchange of prisoners and hostages, and allowed the critical humanitarian assistance delivered by the UN, ICRC, and other partners to those who is on urgent need. Regrettably, this fragile ceasefire was short-lived. Hostilities have resumed, and once again, it is the civilian population that bears to the greatest burden. However, the situation is not hopeless. Let's collectively reaffirm our unwavering commitment to peace, dialogue, and the protection of human life. We call all parties to exercise maximum restraint and to uphold their responsibilities under international humanitarian law. Excellencies, 149 UN member states have recognized the state of Palestine. Kyrgyzstan is proud to be among them. We established diplomatic relations with Palestine back in 1995, and this year we will celebrate the 30th anniversary of our diplomatic ties. We welcome the decision made by France on the recognition of the State of Palestine and the decision of the United Kingdom, which was announced yesterday at this very stage. We believe that a just, lasting, and comprehensive solution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict must be based on the relevant UN resolutions and the long-standing principle of two states for two people, living side by side in peace, security, and mutual recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, the global community must remain united in its efforts to end the bloodshed, to prevent the further loss of innocent lives, prevent further escalation of the full-scale humanitarian catastrophe. We welcome initiative to establish the international coalition to advance the implementation of two-state solution. Kyrgyzstan is ready and will contribute to all international efforts aimed at achieving a just, comprehensive, and sustainable peace in the Middle East. And I thank you.
I thank the representative of Kyrgyzstan for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Kazakhstan.
Distinguished co-chairs, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Kazakhstan commends and sincerely thanks the Republic of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for their leadership in reviving international momentum for a just, lasting, and peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Kazakhstan has consistently supported the realization of the two-state solution as the only viable path to a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace in the Middle East. We firmly believe that the establishment of an independent, sovereign, and viable state of Palestine within the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, living side by side with Israel in peace and security, remains essential to regional and global stability. This vision is founded especially on the relevant UN General Assembly and Security Council resolutions. At the same time, Kazakhstan unequivocally condemns the terrorist attacks carried out on the 7th of October 2023, which led to the killing of civilians and the taking of hostages. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. Such acts are unacceptable and have no justification under international law. The protection of civilians must be upheld on all sides. We are deeply alarmed by continuing escalation of violence, the unprecedented level of human suffering in Gaza, and the absence of a genuine political horizon. The dire humanitarian situation is unacceptable and demands urgent international attention. Kazakhstan reaffirms its support for the central role of the United Nations in efforts to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Hence, we highly commend and support the work of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East in providing vital services and protection to millions of Palestinian refugees. It has been for 7 decades a crucial lifeline for them despite unprecedented operational challenges and funding shortfalls. Kazakhstan has been contributing voluntary financial support to UNRWA and emergency programs and stands ready to continue this assistance. We call for sustained and predictable funding for it and safeguard its neutrality, operational integrity and viability. Furthermore, we express our solidarity with the people of Palestine and reaffirm our readiness to extend humanitarian and development assistance, including to the civilian population in Gaza. We also believe that ensuring accountability and adherence to international humanitarian and human rights law must be at the heart of any meaningful process toward peace. The protection of civilians must remain paramount. There can be no lasting peace without justice, dignity, and mutual recognition. Peace cannot be deferred indefinitely. Kazakhstan welcomes efforts aimed at rebuilding confidence and revitalizing dialogue between the parties as well as within the international community, including through regional and multilateral platforms. We are also open to participate in broader efforts to create enabling conditions for the resumption of meaningful peace negotiations under the auspices of the UN and in line with the internationally agreed parameters. To conclude, the international community has a moral and political responsibility to act. Let us stand for a just and secure Middle East while restoring the faith of generations who deserve to grow up free from fear with rights and opportunities. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Kazakhstan for his statement. I give the floor to the representative of Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Co-chairs, my delegation welcomes the convening of this important international conference, which offers up an opportunity to work together towards the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. My country would like to reiterate its heartfelt congratulations to France and Saudi Arabia. Thank you for your leadership as co-chairs of the conference. Rest assured, you have our full support. Côte d'Ivoire would like to, speaking from this high rostrum, reiterate its support for the initiatives of the UN Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, efforts for peace in the Middle East. We urge the continuation of his tireless efforts to ensure the definitive resolution of the crisis between Israel and Palestine. Co-chairs, this meeting is being held in an international context strongly characterized by the exacerbation of the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, with deadly atrocities, loss of human life, infrastructure destruction, massive civilian displacement, as well as hostages still being detained. According to data from the last report published by the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, to date, the number of people dead and injured due to Hamas's attack on Israel and Israel's counterattacks in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank since the 7th October 2023 stands at 58,000 dead and over 139,000 injured. Faced with this situation, its unprecedented proportions in which we fear humanitarian collapse in Gaza, Côte d'Ivoire, alarmed by this tragedy, would like to once again call for restraint and for recourse to diplomacy for a peaceful and lasting settlement of the crisis. My delegation welcomes the adoption on the 12th of June of this year by the General Assembly of a resolution demanding a ceasefire in Gaza and guarantees that sufficient aid immediately reaches Palestinian civilians. We remain convinced that it is only its effective implementation that will allow to save lives, human dignity, and foster peace. Furthermore, much like many other delegations, we deplore the lack of consensus within the Security Council on this issue. We invite the Council to put aside its differences, especially in humanitarian emergency situations. Co-chairs, indeed, the war in Gaza, which was started on the 7th of October 2023, dealt another blow to the idea of a negotiating solution, solidifying positions and taking us ever further away from the prospects of a return to peace in the region. Nonetheless, we believe that this meeting gives us an excellent opportunity to reiterate our common commitment and attachment to a peaceful settlement of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. We deplore the fact that the settlement efforts have been stalling for decades. Indeed, these deliberations are an opportunity to revive international support for peace. My country stands convinced that it is through respect for international law and relevant Security Council and General Assembly resolutions that a lasting and mutually acceptable solution to the conflict can be found. On this note, we reiterate our commitment to the two-state solution, two states coexisting in peace within 1967 borders. This unswerving position, the position of Côte d'Ivoire, has for decades been advocated for by Félix Houphouët-Boigny, our first president. It was then reiterated by his successors, in particular His Excellency Mr. Alassane Ouattara, President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire. This is the thrust behind our support for relevant UN Security Council UN resolutions calling for a ceasefire, the delivery of humanitarian aid, and the implementation of a two-state solution. Co-chairs, to conclude, I'd like to ardently reiterate that we wish this conference every success. We hope that it will allow for progress on the implementation of UN resolutions on the question of Palestine and the two-state solution, so as to achieve comprehensive, just and lasting peace in the Middle East. I thank you for your kind attention. I thank the representative of Côte d'Ivoire for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Romania.
Esteemed co-chairs, Your Excellencies, Romania welcomes the convening of the international conference in a key moment for the future of the Middle East and our collective security. We wholeheartedly hope that this timely initiative will be a decisive step in reviving the two-state solution and setting it on an irreversible course. We would also like to congratulate the conveners of the conference, the two co-chairs of the event, France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as the co-chairs of the 8 working groups for undertaking this responsibility and for all the hard work that went into the preparations. The events that have transpired since the heinous terrorist attack of October 7, 2023, provide unquestionable evidence that we must keep working towards a political resolution, and our presence here today reflects this common understanding. Regretfully, a ceasefire has not been renewed as of yet. There are hostages still in captivity, and the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains extremely dire. We hope and continue to act in support of an agreement that might open up new opportunities for the whole region. Your Excellencies, from the outset, I would like to underline Romania's long-standing support of a negotiated settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict based on the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. We strongly believe that this is the only sustainable solution that meets both the legitimate aspiration for statehood of the Palestinian people and the necessary security guarantees for Israel, as well as a viable promise for enduring peace and stability in the Middle East. Romania recognized the state of Palestine back in 1988 and for many years continued to foster close ties with both sides, played its part in mediating the early Israeli-Palestinian peace talks, and reiterated their mutual right to live in peace, security, and prosperity. Excellencies, what happened on October 7, 2023 has no justification. We condemn the brutal attack of Hamas against the State of Israel and the Israeli people. Hamas's hostage policy is unacceptable and undermines the future of the two-state solution. Once more, we call for the immediate, unconditional, and dignified release of all hostages. On the other hand, the suffering and destruction in Gaza today reach an unprecedented level. We are witnessing the gravely degraded humanitarian situation in Gaza and the suffering of innocent, especially women and children. The security of Israel cannot and will not come at the cost of civilian lives in Gaza. This is why, along with our EU and regional partners, Romania supports a ceasefire, concrete steps to re-establish decent living conditions for the civilian population of Gaza, and a comprehensive peace agreement as the only path to ensure lasting security for both Israel and the Palestinian people. From the beginning, Romania prioritized the provision of humanitarian aid to the region, sent multiple shipments of humanitarian aid to Gaza, and facilitated the evacuation of pediatric patients from the street, along with their family members. We have carried out so far, together with the European Union, with the European Commission, 7 humanitarian flights for 76 children and 185 family members. 41 of them are currently being treated in Romanian hospitals, and we are committed to continue these efforts. But this is just a temporary and scarce fix for a very complex situation, which needs long-term measures in order to address the reconstruction of Gaza and to heal the physical and emotional scars of this drawn-out conflict. We must continue to assist the Palestinian Authority in preparing its future role, both in the West Bank and Gaza, its capacity building and its reform agenda. Romania remains strongly committed to the principles underlying humanitarian aid. Acknowledging an international community based on the respect of the international law, including international humanitarian law and solidarity, we back a collaborative long-term solution for a reform UNRWA, moving forward with the ongoing process of completely putting the Colonna recommendations into practice. We appreciate the efforts made by EU High Representative Kaja Kallas to reach an agreement with the Israeli authorities on humanitarian aid access. Its full implementation is needed. It can only be deemed successful if there is sufficient humanitarian aid delivered into Gaza. Thus, we also need EU monitoring on the ground and a fully active EU bomb Rafah. Last but not least, I would like to extend our gratitude to the co-chairs of Working Group Number 5, the United Kingdom and Egypt, for their important work. We are ready to work together with
I thank the representative of Romania for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Belize.
Co-chairs, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. At the outset, Belize aligns itself with a statement delivered by the distinguished delegate of Barbados on behalf of the 14 member states of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. We commend the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the government of France for their leadership in co-chairing this conference aimed at advancing the peaceful and just settlement of the question of Palestine. We are especially encouraged by the announcements of several governments that they intend to recognize the state of Palestine in September. We hope that other member states, especially those that supported the 1948 UN resolution, follow suit and join the 147 countries that have already recognized Palestine. Belize's position on the question of Palestine has never wavered. We have been a consistent voice in support of the full realization of the Palestinian people's inalienable rights to self-determination, independence, and sovereignty. It is from this principled position that we view the current situation with deep concern and moral urgency. Excellencies, we are gathered here today to take long overdue steps toward the implementation of the 1948 UN resolution on the question of Palestine. While recognition of the state of Palestine is critical and a necessary step forward, it is only the beginning. The international community must go further and provide every assistance to the Palestinian people to establish and strengthen its institutions to govern and manage a modern, democratic state living side by side with the people of Israel within secure and recognized borders. At the same time, the international community must confront the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Gaza head-on. Homes, schools, hospitals, and entire communities have been destroyed in a campaign of violence that has spared no one. Belize unequivocally condemns the indiscriminate bombing in Gaza, the blockade of life-saving humanitarian aid, and the ongoing violation of the UN Charter and international law. We must act to ensure the immediate, safe, and unimpeded flow of humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people under the coordination and oversight of the United Nations. We must also ensure Palestine receives the financial, material, and technical assistance needed to support their reconstruction efforts. Excellencies, for any of this to materialize, there must be a genuine political process. Israel must come to the table. it must understand that there can be no lasting peace in the region unless the question of Palestine is resolved. Trust must be restored in the region, but first the violence must end. Recrimination by the combatants, their sponsors, the onlookers must stop. The forceful and unlawful acquisition of Palestinian land and property by Israeli settlers in the West Bank must stop. We in the international community must contribute to building trust in the region by providing meaningful support to all the factions, not only Palestine and Israel, but also to their neighbors, so that a culture of peace, cooperation, and mutual respect prevails. Let this conference be the beginning process to create a world in which the children of Palestine and Israel can live without fear, one in which they can live in peace, realize their ambitions, and share the richness of their cultures. Belize stands firmly with the Palestinian people and remain committed to the pursuit of justice, peace, and the vision of two sovereign states living side by side in mutual respect and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Belize for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Bulgaria.
Thank you very much, dear co-chairs. Bulgaria highly appreciates the holding of this important international conference, co-chaired by France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Achieving lasting peace and stability in the Middle East is our shared priority, one that can only be realized through joint and coordinated efforts. Back in 1988, Bulgaria was among the first countries to recognize the state of Palestine. This historic decision stands as a testament to our long-standing commitment to a just and comprehensive peace. Grounded on the two-state solution. Today, we gather not merely to exchange views on policy, but to reaffirm a fundamental principle, one that speaks to the dignity of peoples, the urgency of justice, and the moral responsibility of the international community. That principle is the right of both Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace, security, and self-determination side by side in two sovereign and viable states. The two-state solution is not a rhetorical ideal. It is a vision anchored in decades of international consensus, enshrined in United Nations resolutions, embodied in Oslo Accords, and held by millions who refuse to yield to despair. It remains the only viable path towards a durable peace, one that guarantees a secure and democratic Israel and a free, sovereign, and democratic Palestine. Bulgaria strongly condemns the brutal terrorist attack carried out by Hamas on 7th of October 2023, which resulted in the horrific loss of more than 1,200 innocent civilian lives. The tragic developments in the Middle East since 7th of October underscore the urgent need for peace. As is often the case, civilians bear the heaviest burden of the conflict. The immediate priority must be an enduring ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages, and the dramatic improvement in the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza. This must include unimpeded access for humanitarian aid and its sustained distribution across the Strip, in line with UN Security Resolution 2735, as well as the protection of humanitarian workers on the ground. These goals require not only political, but will be also the design of implementation of practical and viable solutions. For peace to be sustainable, it must emerge from direct negotiations between the parties, who must be willing to compromise, demonstrate leadership, and take courageous steps forward. The fundamental prerequisite for lasting peace is trust, confidence-building measure aiming at reducing tensions, enhancing communication, and promoting dialogue must be prioritized during any potential peace process. In this context, the exchange of information on security-related matters and the exercise of restraint are critical. Israel has a proven record of such cooperation, including with Palestinian Authority. Any future regional security architecture must take into account Israel's legitimate security concerns and be rooted in the recognition of its right to exist, an imperative that should be universally accepted. Neighboring Arab states should be actively involved in this effort, ideally through normalization of relations following the model of the Abraham Accords. At the same time, the state of Palestine, represented by the Palestinian Authority, must be recognized by the international community, excluding any role for Hamas. This requires successful inter-Palestinian reconciliation, leading to the establishment of unified leadership elected through inclusive democratic elections. These elections would not only resolve questions of legitimacy, but would also lay the foundation for a functional and democratic Palestinian state. In this regard, capacity building remains essential. Particular attention must be given to working with the youth, creating pathways to peace and development, while countering radicalization and incitement to violence. Let history remember this moment, not as yet another missed opportunity, but as a beginning of a renewed international commitment. Let this conference not only express solidarity, but serve as a catalyst for action. For peace is not a gift we offer one another, it's a responsibility we owe to future generations. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Bulgaria for his statement and now give the floor to the representative of Gambia.
Co-chairs, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me seize this opportunity to convey our deep appreciation to the governments of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening this international conference under the auspices of the General Assembly as regards the question of Palestine and the two-state solution in a bid to work towards the international processes for lasting peaceful solution to the crisis in Gaza. The Gambia also welcomes the historic efforts by France for the recognition of Palestine as a state and encourages other member states to seize the momentum and to recognize Palestinian statehood. This conference is a call to collective and pragmatic action anchored on the hope of peace, justice, dignity, and respect for self-determination, sovereignty, and the statehood of the Palestinian people. Excellencies, today we stand at a critical juncture in the history of our world, facing a crisis that threatens to unravel decades of diplomatic efforts and plunge our world into deeper conflict. As we gathered here, the occupation of Palestine continues to be a source of immense pain and suffering. This comportment not only undermines the prospect for a peaceful resolution, but also exacerbate the tensions within the region. Chair, co-chairs, the ongoing occupation of Palestine and the injustice suffered by the Palestinian people serve as one of the most egregious situations to have ever occurred in our lifetime. It is incontrovertible that in view of the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, the need for definitively resolve the conflict has never been more urgent. The Gambia recognizes the enduring negative consequences of the occupation of Palestine and believes that the occupation and hostilities against the Palestinian people is not only a violation of our shared humanity, but also an affront to the rule-based international order. In this regard, the Gambia warmly welcomes the outcome of the various working groups established on the margins of this high-level conference. The situation of Palestine is about the core principle of justice and self-determination. We cannot continue to remain silent when clear violations of international human rights and international law are being committed in Gaza and West Bank. Co-chairs, the humanitarian catastrophe currently unfolding in Gaza is both profound and devastating, with far-reaching consequences not only for the region, but for the international community as well. We support all genuine efforts to maximize the prospect of a peaceful resolution, including the efforts aimed at reducing the tension within the region. Gaza's future and that of its population must be guaranteed. The scale of the displacement has resulted in unprecedented strain on resources and infrastructure within Gaza and neighboring areas where refugees seek shelter. Essential services like healthcare, water, sanitation, and electricity are severely compromised, leading to severe shortages of necessities. The people of Gaza need our collective support to rebuild their lives. It is critical for the global community to come together to ensure that humanitarian aid reaches those in need and to work towards a sustainable political solution that promotes peace and security for all people in the region. Bearing in mind, also, the peace cannot be guaranteed without the exercise of right to self-determination of the Palestinian people and statehood. It is our conviction that we proceed with a clear focus on our shared goals, peace, justice, and restoration of dignity to all those affected by the conflict. It is through our united efforts that we can hope to achieve a durable ceasefire and the unconditional release of all hostages, thereby paving the way for a lasting peace and that respects the rights and sovereignty of all. The Gambia believes that the lasting peace on both sides embodies the strong collective resolve to also ensure the full membership of Palestine into the United Nations and earning its deserved position as part of the Committee of Nations with equal rights and many other member states of the United Nations. In this context, we reiterate and endorse the call for a peace day for a lasting solution to the Palestinian problem. In our view, the best option for a peaceful settlement of this dispute between
Je remercie.
I thank the representative of the Gambia for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Co-chairs, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the United Republic of Tanzania is honored to participate in this important high-level conference on the question of Palestine and the pursuit of this two-state solution. We commend the initiatives and leadership of the co-chairs, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the French Republic, and welcome the continued commitment of the international community to advancing a just, lasting, and peaceful resolution to the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Tanzania remains deeply concerned by the continued escalation of violence and the terrible humanitarian situation, particularly in the Gaza Strip. The situation reaffirms the urgent need for concrete steps towards implementing the two-state solution with Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security within the secure internationally recognized borders based on the pre-1967 lines in accordance with international law and relevant United Nations resolutions, including General Assembly Resolution ES 10/24. Co-chairs, Tanzania reaffirmed its unwavering support for the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, including their right to self-determination, independence, and sovereignty. We reiterate our long-standing position that the only sustainable path to peace is through genuine negotiation based on mutual recognition, peaceful coexistence, and a shared commitment to justice and international law. As the world is still witnessing the horrible humanitarian situation and untold human suffering in the Gaza Strip, we call upon the United Nations Security Council to fully uphold its responsibility under the Charter, particularly those contained in Article 12 and 24, and we take decisive action to end the cycle of conflict and impunity. We further urge all parties to agree to an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire, and to ensure impeding access to humanitarian assistance, including food, water, medical supplies, and shelter. Tanzania underscores the importance of dialogue as the only viable and durable solution to the conflict. Surely, There's no military solution to the conflict, so concerned parties must engage in constructive dialogue and sincerely work towards lasting peace, seek truth and reconciliation, and undertake confidence-building measures, including the release of hostage and cessation of all acts of violence against civilians. Co-chairs, Tanzania has recognized the state of Palestine for over 6 decades and full support its admission as a full member of United Nations. The admission of Palestine as a member of this important organization will only reaffirm its purpose and principle, this is undermining them. The people of Palestine who have been denied their homeland and with secure borders, forced to live as refugees in their lands, and subjected to untold suffering, deserve the permanent reliefs. This August Assembly must continue to provide opportunity for the admission of the State of Palestine as a member of our organization. And the Security Council must refrain from preventing the actualization of this long-expired goal. Co-chair, in conclusion, Tanzania reiterates its commitment to multilateral efforts aimed at achieving peace, security, dignity for both Palestinians and Israelis. We remain ready to work in solidarity with the member states to ensure the realization of the two-state solution and to restore hope, stability, and justice to the people of the region. I thank you.
Je remercie Monsieur.
I thank the representative of the United Republic of Tanzania, and I give the floor to the representative of Guinea.
Monsieur le Co-Président.
Co-chairs, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, on behalf of His Excellency, General Mamadi Doumbouya, President of the Republic of Guinea, welcomed the joint initiative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the French Republic. That is the initiative to convene this international conference dedicated to the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. My delegation fully subscribes to the statement delivered by Uganda on behalf of the non-aligned movement. Co-chairs. The Republic of Guinea reiterates its unswerving support to the Palestinian cause, which is underpinned not just by the principles of international law, but also the values of brotherhood, dignity, and humanity, to which the people of Guinea are strongly committed. The Republic of Guinea, true to its historic commitment to justice, peace, and international security, recognized the State of Palestine already in November 1988. We believe that there is an overriding necessity to recognize the State of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital and to grant it fully fledged member status within the United Nations organization. The right of the Palestinian people to self-determination, to freedom, and to an independent state is both what justice requires, but it is also an essential precondition for lasting peace in the Middle East. The two-state solution, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security within recognized borders based on 1967 lines, remains the only viable path that is in keeping with international law. Co-chairs, we cannot ignore the human tragedy currently unfolding in the Gaza Strip. Too many lives have been lost. Children, women, and entire families have been decimated. Many people are still missing. Essential civilian infrastructure has been seriously damaged, if not completely destroyed. This situation cannot go on. We bear the collective moral responsibility to put an end to it, and definitively so, because the safeguarding of the values and principles which underpin our humanity are at stake. The eyes of the world, the eyes of our people are upon us. They are judging us on our collective capacity to ensure that international law and the ideals of peace, justice, and moral dignity, which are the bedrock of our organization, to ensure they prevail. Silence, inaction, indifference would constitute a betrayal not only to the fundamental principles of this organization, but to our very own humanity. The the Republic of Guinea calls for an immediate, total, and lasting ceasefire. We reiterate that any lasting and viable solution necessarily requires an end to the violence, the occupation, and settlement activities on Palestinian territory, including in East Jerusalem, the recognition, full and comprehensive recognition, of a sovereign and independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, living in peace side by side with Israel, meticulous respect for relevant UN resolutions, and full and unfettered access for the delivery of humanitarian assistance. Co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen, today, more than ever, the Republic of Guinea stands shoulder to shoulder with those who've opted for dialogue over confrontation. We're here to reaffirm that peace is not a utopia. It is a must, and peace calls for political courage. It is high time to translate declarations of principles into concrete action. We need a clear-cut, consensus-based roadmap to ensure that the hopes of the Palestinian people become a political reality. We remain convinced that peaceful coexistence between the states of Palestine and Israel is not only possible, but necessary. It is in the name of our common humanity that we must seize the opportunity offered by this conference to definitively revive the hope of lasting peace between Israel and Palestine, with respect for human dignity and the solidarity among peoples. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guinea for that statement. And I give the floor to the representative of Guyana.
Your Excellencies, co-chairs, Guyana aligns itself with the statement delivered by the permanent representative of Barbados on behalf of the member states of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. I commend you both, co-chairs of the working groups, for your preparations for the convening of this conference. Excellencies, following the General Assembly's adoption in 1947 of Resolution 181, in which it decided on the establishment of an independent Arab state and an independent Jewish state, the independent Jewish state Israel was created and recognized in 1949. However, almost 8 decades later, and with the formation and recognition of more than 80 new sovereign states by the UN, the establishment of an independent state of Palestine is still outstanding. Implementation of the two-state solution is a collective responsibility of the General Assembly, some aspects of which are common to all member states, while others are differentiated. Recognition of the state of Palestine is at the core. The two-state solution is only partially implemented due to the twin problem of the non-recognition of the state of Palestine by some member states and Israel's ongoing occupation of the Palestinian territory. Guyana therefore calls on all member states still to do so, to recognize the state of Palestine. We also call on Israel to comply with the advisory opinion of the ICJ regarding its unlawful occupation of the Palestinian territories. Excellencies, we are meeting against the backdrop of an unprecedented war in Gaza, characterized by repeated violations of international law. The onus is on all member states to be vigilant and consistent in their defense of international law on the question of Palestine. There should be no double standards and no silence and inaction when the rule of law is being violated. While most member states have been vocal in their condemnation of the ongoing atrocities in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, we urge every member of this organization to redouble their efforts to bring this tragedy to an end. Turning to actions needed for positive change, let me highlight 3 points. First, the ongoing situation in the occupied Palestinian territory remains a serious threat to international peace and security, and the Charter empowers the Security Council to respond to such threats decisively. Regrettably, the Council, as a collective, has not yet achieved the level of political will necessary to take those decisions. Second, action is needed in defense of the United Nations, humanitarians, medical personnel, journalists, and other professionals who continue to be the targets of indiscriminate and illegal actions by the occupying power. UNRWA, which has performed a stabilizing role in the OPT since its establishment in 1948, suffered the brunt of attacks against the UN. Last week, we were told that OCHA is next. This trend must not be allowed to continue, as it sets a dangerous precedent. Third, member states must be prepared to take bilateral action where it is necessary to stem the means of destruction used by the occupying power to weaken the two-state solution. Member states must continue working until an independent state of Palestine is established, pursuant to the relevant United Nations resolutions and in line with the pre-1967 borders. We must dissuade all actions that undermine this goal. In this context, we call on Israel to hand over all remittances being held for the Palestinian Authority. Excellencies, allow me to conclude by reaffirming our full support for the implementation of the two-state solution. Guyana looks forward to continuing its contributions to this goal, including through implementation of the recommendations emanating from this conference. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guyana for her statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Kenya.
Co-chairs, excellencies, distinguished delegates, Kenya aligns itself with the statement read by the Republic of Uganda on behalf of the non-aligned movement. We also align with the African Union position that espouses the achievement of a two-state solution through negotiations founded on relevant UN resolutions and supports homegrown solutions based on socio-cultural tolerance. My delegation would now like to state the following in our national capacity. For decades, the Middle East has endured an ever-deepening occupation, cycles of violence, and the collapse of every major peace negotiation. The spiraling increase of civilian casualties, widespread displacement, and catastrophic humanitarian emergencies continue to imperil not only Palestinian aspirations for sovereignty and Israeli security, but also the stability of the entire region and the authority of international law. The two-state solution is deemed as the sole framework capable of delivering just, lasting peace. Unfortunately, it's now on the brink of collapse. Co-chairs, Kenya is concerned that the absence of decisive and coordinated action, unilateral measures, hardened stances of an irreversible status quo of protracted conflict will prolong human suffering and strategic fragmentation. In this regard, we take note that this conference is one of the few chances remaining to transform consensus into tangible, irreversible steps and propose the following actions embedded in three core pillars. First, ceasefire and humanitarian relief to secure an immediate, verifiable ceasefire, ensure the unconditional release of all hostages, and guarantee unfettered delivery of humanitarian assistance and the full withdrawal of military forces from Gaza. Second, implementing the two-state solution with security guarantees by convening a United Nations-backed mechanism and establishing robust, jointly monitored security arrangements to protect civilians on both sides, linked to benchmarks that reinforce the two-state roadmap. Third, instituting time-bound framework to adopt a comprehensive UN resolution mandating clear deadlines and enforcement measures and create a multinational oversight body that builds on the Global Alliance for Implementation to monitor compliance, deter, spoilers, and report transparently to the international community. Co-chairs, excellencies, distinguished delegates, the world watches us to see whether we can convert long-standing consensus into concrete, irreversible action by embracing three core pillars, that's political, economic, and security. We can cement an enduring peace with two states side by side in mutual security and cooperation, and pave the way for a stable, integrated Middle East. Kenya believes that collective and individual measures will help transform long-standing consensus into irreversible steps toward two sovereign states living side by side in peace, security, and mutual respect. In conclusion, we reaffirm our support for the two-state solution and commit to collaborating with member states in joint efforts to secure durable and lasting peace. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Kenya for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Czechia.
Distinguished co-chairs, excellencies, we welcome this opportunity to affirm Czechia's long-standing commitment to a peaceful resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This vision is grounded in the establishment of two states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace, security, and mutual recognition. We are deeply concerned by the continued violence and humanitarian suffering in the region, and we call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the unconditional release of all hostages, leading to a permanent end of hostilities. Czechia acknowledges the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people for statehood and dignity, just as we affirm Israel's right to exist, free from terror and existential threats. We believe that the only viable path to achieving this vision is through direct negotiations between the two parties. A negotiated agreement remains the sole sustainable means to ensure stability, democratic and economic development, and security for all. Unilateral actions risk undermining the delicate balance required for meaningful dialogue and may further entrench divisions. Excellencies, it is of utmost importance to re-establish a political horizon toward a two-state solution. We urge all parties and international actors to focus on confidence-building measures, regional cooperation, including through frameworks such as the Abraham Accords, and practical steps that can foster trust and pave the way for renewed negotiations. A peace settlement must serve the legitimate interests of both peoples, who rightfully expect tangible outcomes from diplomatic efforts. It is imperative to create conditions that enable Palestinians to establish a viable, independent future, whilst also ensuring that Israelis are not perpetually confronted with critical security concerns. Furthermore, Hamas should no longer pose a threat to Israel and must have no role in Palestine's future governance. Excellencies, achieving a just and lasting peace will require bold and courageous decisions from both Israelis and the Palestinians. The path to a two-state solution is neither simple nor without sacrifice, but it demands leadership that prioritizes the future over the past and reconciliation over retaliation. Both sides must demonstrate the political will to engage in meaningful dialogue, make difficult compromises, and reject extremism in all its forms. Only through such resolve can we hope to transform aspirations into reality. Czechia stands ready to assist in any genuine effort that brings both sides back to the negotiating table and advances the cause of peace. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Czechia for her statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, co-chairs, highnesses, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's our honor to participate in this high-level conference that comes at a time when the wounds of the region are deepening, at a time when the cycle of injustice and suffering is expanding, at a time when the brotherly Palestinian people lack prospects for just solutions. We thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Republic of France for convening this important meeting. This conference is an opportunity that must not go unnoticed. It is a defining moment for us to renew our collective political will, not only to find solutions, but to advance the implementation of the two-state solution, this solution that has long been rejected and overlooked and eroded. Co-chairs, the Palestinian people for more than 7 decades have been reeling from ongoing occupation. They have been systematically deprived of their most basic national and human rights. The international community has stood silent as the Palestinians have been reeling on a daily basis from colonial settlement, forced displacement, blockade, daily violations. The holy Christian and Muslim sites have been desecrated, and the life of a whole people have been fragmented generation after generation. Despite this, the Palestinian people continue to uphold their legitimate right to freedom, independence, and self-determination as enshrined in international law and UN resolutions. They do not demand more than this. In this context, we reiterate our unwavering support for the two-state solution along the 4 June 1967 borders and on the basis of UN Security Council and General Assembly resolutions, and on the basis of international law and the Arab Peace Initiative for the establishment of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. We call clearly for the full recognition of the State of Palestine and for its full admission in the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, injustice does not achieve peace. Ongoing occupation does not generate stability. We reject double standards and the selective application of international law. We cannot respect international law in one place and overlook its violation in another place, and the occupier cannot be rewarded, and the people under occupation cannot be punished. The implementation of the two-state solution is no longer a diplomatic option. We now call today for clear measures that can no longer be postponed. First, the State of Palestine must be admitted as a full member of the UN. Secondly, all illegal settlement activities must come to an end immediately and unconditionally. Thirdly, the blockade on Gaza must be lifted and humanitarian safe corridors must be opened. Fourthly, international protection must be afforded to the Palestinians. Fifthly, we must revive the serious and binding political track under international multilateral auspices with a clear implementation mechanisms. In conclusion, the time is not on our side. Every day without a solution is a new day of pain, a new day of dashed hopes and erosion of international order. We hope that this conference will be a true turning point where we do not only express intentions, but we transition towards actionable implementation and follow-up mechanisms. In this context, we reiterate our clear position. Palestine is not only a humanitarian cause, it is a question of justice, a question of rights and sovereignty. The government and people of Somalia will continue to support this just question in all fora. We believe that freedom is achieved and snatched by justice and is defended in position. Thank you for your kind attention.
I thank the representative of Somalia for that statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Cabo Verde.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, Cabo Verde aligns itself with the statements delivered on behalf of the G77 and the African Group, and hereby delivers in national capacity. Cabo Verde stands before this high-level conference with profound commitment to peace, international security, and respect for the fundamental principles of international law. Since its independence, our country has upheld its sovereign policy on principles of peaceful cooperation, mutual respect, and the right of all peoples to self-determination and independence in line with the Charter of the UN. The two-state solution for Israel and Palestine represents not only a legal and political imperative, but also the only sustainable way to ensure security, stability, and development for both people. Cabo Verde would like to highlight three fundamental pillars for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and to implement the two-state solution. 1. The establishment of the Palestinian state, founded on full sovereignty and territorial integrity, must be grounded in international norms protecting the territorial integrity and historical rights of the Palestinian people. 2. Peace will not be sustainable without concrete and balanced security arrangements that ensure mutual protection and trust-building mechanisms between the parties. Coordinated measures must be implemented in a transparent and binding manner, reinforcing both Israel and Palestine's commitment to a future free of hostilities and existential threats. 3. The success of the two-state solution depends not only on political and legal guarantees, but it will only prevail if sustainable economic conditions are also assured. Post-conflict reconstruction must be linked to economic integration strategies, promoting a resilient governance structure, sustainable investments, and effective assistance mechanisms. For Cabo Verde, it is clear that peace cannot reign upon diplomatic commitments alone. For peace to prevail, it must be built on justice, respect for international law, and recognition of the dignity of all peoples. The success of this conference will be measured by the concrete actions we take, ensuring that two states can coexist side by side with security, sovereignty, and prosperity. Cabo Verde is hopeful that this conference will produce effective commitments and tangible results for a just and lasting peace. Cabo Verde reiterates its full support to the implementation of the two-state solution. May this path lead to two neighbor nations living in peace and rebuilding a prosperous future for the generations to come. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Cabo Verde for her statement. I give the floor to the representative of Nepal.
Distinguished co-chairs, first let me extend my sincere appreciation to the governments of the French Republic and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening this high-level international conference. Excellencies, for nearly 8 decades, the pursuit of just and lasting peace in the Israeli-Palestine conflict has remained elusive. Uncertainty, chaos, violence, and despair dominate the regions over the decades. The situation has further deteriorated since the October 7 terrorist attacks on Israel by Hamas. The region is descending into even greater turmoil and volatility since then. The humanitarian crisis has reached unimaginable levels. Relentless loss of innocent lives, mass displacement, and widespread destructions have unfortunately become the tragic norm. The indiscriminate targeting of civilians, aid workers, and vital infrastructures continues unabated. The world cannot afford to stand by as devastation unfolds. Urgent and decisive action is needed to break this cycle of violence and restore hope for a peaceful future for both Palestinians and Israelis. Excellencies, Nepal strongly condemned the brutal attack on Israel on 7 October 2023, which claimed the lives of hundreds, including 10 Nepali nationals. Equally, we have denounced the indiscriminate use of force against civilians in Gaza. Nepal has consistently called for immediate de-escalations, restraint on end to civilian casualties, and protections of public and private properties. We also call for providing immediate, unrestricted, and adequate humanitarian assistance to the disparate civilians in Gaza. Humanity must be preserved, and human rights must be respected in all circumstances. It is also crucial that international laws, including the international humanitarian laws, are fully respected by all. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages taken by Hamas, including Bipin Joshi from Nepal. We are gravely concerned about his and others' health and well-being. Co-chairs, Nepal has long supported a two-state solution, advocating for Israeli and Palestinians to coexist peacefully within the recognized international borders based on international law and relevant UN resolution. We affirm our support for all efforts aimed at achieving a just, peaceful, and lasting solution to the questions of Palestine. We urge both Israel and Palestine to exercise utmost restraint, to end hostilities, resort to dialogue and diplomacy, and uphold internationally recognized agreements, including the two-state solutions. Stopping ongoing violence and securing of durable ceasefire is crucial to create conditions for diplomacy and prevent further civilian casualties. On this score, we appreciate the efforts made by the United States of America, Qatar, and Egypt for achieving permanent ceasefire. The United Nations and international community must take all necessary measures to restart negotiations, establish a framework for lasting peace, and find a just, peaceful, amicable, and lasting political solutions to the problems. For this, myopic visions and narrow political interests must be set aside. This is crucial to prevent this crisis from deepening into a catastrophe. We stand by our conviction that a political resolutions grounded in two-state solutions is the most effective path to ending suffering, breaking the cycle of violence, and securing long overdue peace for both Palestinian and Israeli civilians. In conclusion, co-chairs, let's unite in pursuit of a just and lasting solution to one of the world's most prolonged and complex challenges. Let's ensure that peace prevails in the regions and beyond. And let's build a future for both Israelis and Palestinians grounded in peace, justice, and coexistence. I thank you.
Je remercie.
I thank the distinguished representative of Nepal for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the floor. St. Vincent and the Grenadines extends its appreciation to the co-chairs of the conference, His Excellency Jean-Noël Barrot, Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs of the Republic of France, and His Highness Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We welcome your efforts in convening this important high-level meeting on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. Excellencies, today we must accept the harsh reality that our multilateral system is fractured, and this breakdown has in turn allowed the erosion of the principles of international law, including those set out in the Charter of the United Nations, as well as the legally binding resolutions adopted by the Security Council. These principles are not abstract ideals, but safeguards for our peaceful coexistence. This is why St. Vincent and the Grenadines regards this conference as a critical opportunity to rebuild trust among states through the recommitment in good faith to the principles of international law and the two-state solution as set out in the Security Council Resolution 242/1967. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East has for too long assailed the people of Gaza, their suffering being a tragic testament of the consequences of setting aside international law that was designed to, at a minimum, put an end to such a conflict. The Palestinian people continue to contend with illegal occupation, dispossession, and harsh settler colonialist policies without delay in recognizing an independent state of Palestine, being a contributing factor to the toxic status quo. The cycle of death and destruction, ongoing impunity, and the violations of our international framework cannot be allowed to continue. International law, including the principles embedded in the Charter of the United Nations, can neither be selectively applied nor sporadically upheld. As a modern civilization, if we are credible defenders of peace, then we must ultimately be consistent defenders of international law. Within this context, St. Vincent and the Grenadines reaffirms its support to a two-state solution that guarantees that both Israel and Palestine can live side by side in peace and security within internationally recognized borders based on the pre-1967 lines. Every state and people desirous of such ambitions are deserving of achieving it. Excellencies, the Charter of the United Nations is clear in its preamble. We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. This solemn commitment must serve as our collective moral compass. It is our sincere hope that this conference will mark a turning point in the region, as well as in our global commitment to peace, stability, and multilateral cooperation. We express our hope that the work of the working groups must would amount to more than just an academic exercise, but instead would contribute tangibly to a shift in the discourse and the direction of this long-standing issue, operating as launching pads for action. We recognize, however, that to be impactful, our commitments throughout this conference must be backed by concrete, measurable action. Now is not the time for fatigue. We can no longer simply stand in solidarity. The need to implement a two-state solution has become more urgent than ever. And to this end, we
I thank the representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for her statement. I thank the representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for her statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Cuba.
Señores copresidentes.
Co-chairs, we support the statements delivered by Uganda on behalf of the non-aligned movement and by Venezuela on behalf of the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter. Cuba has consistently supported the Palestinian people, who have been denied the exercise of their rights, including the inalienable right to self-determination. And we have denounced the atrocities committed by Israel for more than 75 years now. Cuba has called for a comprehensive, just and lasting solution on the basis of the creation of two states, enabling the Palestinian people to exercise their right to self-determination and to possess a free and sovereign state within the pre-1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, and the return of refugees as crucial premises for resolving the conflict. Cuba participated in the extraordinary ministerial meeting of the Hague Group, an initiative by a number of states seeking to coordinate action to achieve tangible results and take urgent measures to enforce an immediate and permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and the withdrawal of Israeli occupying forces. We have joined the call of the immense majority of the international community for decisive action that would bring an end to one of the most long-standing injustices of our time, an injustice that has worsened over the last 2 years, during which Israel has committed crimes against humanity, collective punishment, apartheid, and genocide against the Palestinian people with impunity. The number of displaced persons, as well as the destruction of hospitals and other civilian infrastructure in blatant violation of international humanitarian law, put us face to face with a painful reality that wounds our humanity. The massacre perpetrated against the besieged Gaza Strip has triggered an unprecedented humanitarian crisis, plunging the territory into terror, death, and mass destruction. Indeed, according to the United Nations reports, millions of civilians are trapped, fighting hunger, disease, and constant displacement. We see consistent Israeli settlement building practices, and violence is escalating in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. We cannot allow illegal settlements and repression to become normalized. Excellencies, it is impossible to talk of the situation in Palestine without speaking out about the historical complicity of the United States government, which is also responsible for the genocide by repeatedly using its veto right in the Security Council to block the implementation of a ceasefire that would halt the massacre and would uphold the will of the international community. The paralysis of the Security Council is an affront harnessed by Israel to continue its criminal policies without fear of consequence. Concrete action is urgently needed in this body to halt the ongoing genocide, to allow the unrestricted delivery of sufficient humanitarian aid, and to guarantee the vital work of UNRWA. More than 145 countries already recognize the State of Palestine. The full membership of Palestine in the United Nations can no longer be delayed. It is vital to begin the reconstruction of Gaza, to create conditions for the return of displaced persons, to ensure the full and unconditional withdrawal of the Israeli occupying forces, and to implement the agreements reached between the parties. The aspiration that this forum will provide real prospects for a just, lasting and sustainable solution to the conflict is something that is shared by millions of people around the world. Let us not fail them. Justice for Palestine can wait no longer. Let us act in line with the urgency that humanity is demanding and that the Palestinian people need as a crucial condition for achieving a just, lasting and sustainable peace in the Middle East. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Cuba for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the Maldives.
Co-chairs, distinguished delegates, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This conference must mark a turning point to end the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's a historic opportunity to restore justice and enforce accountability. For a region long shrouded in conflict and suffering, this conference can create momentum to realize two-state solution. In 1947, the General Assembly promised that two peoples could live side by side in peace, dignity, and sovereignty. The reality today is stark. Over 100,000 Palestinians wounded, 50,000 killed, more than 17,000 of them children. The world cannot stand in idle while children die from deliberately imposed hunger. This is unfolding before our own eyes. Yet Israel's actions remain impervious to pleas. Its impunity blocking every attempt to end the suffering. We must not normalize such devastation or become desensitized to the loss of innocent life. In moments like this, diplomacy and multilateralism must not retreat. They must rise. We need more action, not just condemnation, more cooperation, and less polarization. The Maldives stands today with unwavering moral clarity. We may be small, but we have never wavered in standing for what is right. This is why we recognized the State of Palestine in 1988. This is why the Maldives has filed a declaration of intervention at the ICJ for the application of the Genocide Convention in Gaza Strip. This is why we argued before the court that Israel's action violate Palestinians' human rights and demanded humanitarian access. Let us begin with the truth. The State of Palestine exists. 147 countries in this hall recognize it, and more have expressed their intent to do so. The Palestinian flag flies outside this hall. Its sovereignty and its people must not be erased. From Gaza to West Bank to East Jerusalem, Palestinians have the inalienable right to remain, to return, and to govern a state of their own freely and fully. The targeting of UNRWA must stop. Defunding a humanitarian lifeline during famine and massacre is not policy, it's cruelty. Humanitarian workers are not the enemy, nor are journalists. And aid is not optional, nor is the obligation to protect civilians. The Maldives believes in a just, lasting solution: 2 states, 2 peoples, and 1 peace. But there can be no peace without justice. Israel must be held accountable for the lives it has taken, for the homes it has destroyed, for the future it has killed, and for the hopes it has extinguished. Reparations, restitutions, and redress is the bare minimum. The Maldives supports Arab Reconstruction Plan with technical expertise, financial support, and moral leadership, and we urge others to do the same. This is why we begin to restore humanity to a people who have lost everything. Let every child in Palestine grow with dignity and hope for the future they deserve. I thank you.
Je remercie Monsieur le représentant.
I thank the representative of the Maldives for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the League of Arab States.
يسعدني أن أقف على هذا المنبر اليوم مرتديا.
Allow me to take the floor and in the honour of Palestine to express our solidarity with the state of Palestine. Here I present the statement of the Secretary General of the League of Arab States, who was unable to make the statement himself. At the outset, allow me to express my thanks to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the French Republic for chairing this meeting at a difficult time, which is not enabling a serious effort towards peace. This international conference, with such a broad-based participation, allows us to focus on the crime of the century, which reminds us of the somber times of history, and we hope that it will never happen again. We think that those that were victims of crimes against humanity would understand the sense of humanity, that those who had lived through ethnic cleansing would never practice it, that those who were victims of genocide and its horrors would not be tempted to commit this crime of genocide that we are seeing today, the plans of which have been announced in Gaza and the OPT. We must denounce this crime in all of its gravity and the tragedy that it causes. They are the continuum of another crime, that is occupation. A crime that the ICJ has asked to be brought to an end as soon as possible. What we're seeing today in Gaza, the withdrawal of stability and security in the region, is indeed the outcome of the ongoing occupation. This is